We're coming through the season of Epiphany, the season that is about revelation. That's what Epiphany means. The opening up of things, the showing of things that had formerly been hidden. And last Sunday, we heard that phrase, the heavens were opened. That the mystery of God, the mind of God, the heart of God had been made accessible, had been opened up, had been placed upon this one Jesus. And today, John in his gospel talks about what this means, what's being revealed, what's being shown to us in and through Jesus. And John uses the language of signs for revelation, because a sign points to something greater. I saw the sign yesterday that said Montgomery County. And I wouldn't mistake the sign for the reality. Behind that sign was this vast real estate of roads and houses and cars and people and transactions and all sorts of things happening and changing continually. And there's this great actual mystery of the reality of Montgomery County that is ever changing. And so John tells us that Jesus performed his first sign at a wedding in Cana of Galilee. So let's first just look at the sign. And then hopefully we'll get into a sense of what is behind the sign. They're at a wedding, and it was a normal village wedding, probably. In Palestine, those weddings would go on for days, not hours. And as the wedding's going along, we don't know what day it is, the wine gives out, which would be an embarrassing situation for the family, the people hosting. And Mary says to Jesus, they have no wine. So there's an invitation here. And we don't really know what Mary's thinking, or what she knows or doesn't know. But she says they have no wine. And Jesus responds that this is not my time to do something public. The time has not come. The hour isn't here for me to manifest the power of God in something like that. Or so it seems he says. Because Mary just says to the servants, do whatever he tells you. So the invitation remains to do something, and it seems that Jesus takes up that invitation, but in his own way. He's going to give a sign, but it's going to be a quiet sign. It isn't time for a big sign. So he tells the servants to fill the jars with water, to take the water to the steward, and the steward declares that the bridegroom and their family weren't very smart because they saved the really, really good wine until everybody had been drinking and wouldn't even appreciate how good it was. The steward of the feast and the people at the wedding and the people of the village have no idea that anything happened except a slight strategy mistake. We are told that the servants knew what happened, but there's no mention about them from then on, so we don't know if they received the sign. But it does say that Jesus did his first sign and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed him. And it seems that Jesus chose this opportunity to begin to speak with a sign to his disciples. They are the ones that it impacts. It says they believed in him. It actually literally means they believed into him. They trusted him. They entrusted themselves to him. They saw, it says, glory. They saw mystery, power, that the presence and activity of God was moving in this man. And they were going to trust this man. So there's the sign. Now where do we go with this sign? Because the sign isn't about changing water into wine. Any more than Montgomery County is a little sign that's about 1 foot high by 4 feet long. Because what Jesus begins to do here is change his disciples. God isn't interested in making wine. God is interested in making people. And the activity of God that's beginning here, and it really is like the making of wine in that it's a long process of Jesus maturing his disciples, changing them, transforming them. Here are these ordinary men, and they are capable of doing the things they do, many good things, vessels of life and energy. But now a change is beginning in them. They're beginning to see glory. And Jesus is beginning to change them to be bearers of glory. That is to say, mystery. That is to say, the activity of God, the working of God. They are going to become more and more, as they change, vessels that pour out love, forgiveness, truth. The activity of God. They're becoming locations of God's activity. St. Paul talked about it today, later on, after the fact, in the next generation of people gathered in the church. He says, to each is given the manifestation of the Spirit, this revelation of God's activity. To each, meaning to each believer, to each person who puts their trust in Jesus and does whatever he tells them. To that person, the activity of the Spirit begins to happen. A person begins to be changed. And God begins to act through them. And the key thing that we see in this sign is actually given to us by Mary, who says to the servants, do whatever he tells you to do. Trust him. And the disciples, after they see what happens, begin to trust him, begin to be more ready to do whatever he tells them to do. And what we are coming to do here, and what we are invited to do daily, is listen to him and do whatever he tells us to do. We need to know him. We need to know what he says. And we need to be renewing ourselves in that all the time and letting what he says to do begin to take hold and to change us little by little by little until we become really good wine. That people really taste something good in this world. It's not us. We're the vessel. We're the earthen jar. But it's what God gives through ordinary vessels. Trust Jesus. Do whatever he tells you to do.